U.S. Virgin Islands National Park is a treasure trove of adventure where crystal clear turquoise waters meets world-class snorkeling, and hikes lead to awe-inspiring views and historic ruins. In this video, we're diving into 2 unforgettable days exploring U.S. Virgin Islands National Park on St. John. We'll show you how to make the most of the short trip to this Caribbean paradise, and if you want to learn more about planning for the trip, check out the planning video linked in the description. Alright, let's jump in. Before heading to the island, we had an amazing week in Puerto Rico, which you can see linked in the description. Everyone had a reason they needed to be home, so they flew back to Los Angeles, but I couldn't pass up an opportunity to go to the national park since I was so close. From Puerto Rico, it was only a $69 flight and about 25 minutes to get over to St. Thomas, which is the jumping off point for getting to St. John, where the national park is. I'll cover this a lot more in the planning video, but I arrived at the airport, I found my shuttle over to my rental car, and then I picked up the rental car to continue the journey. It's about a 35-minute drive from the airport to Red Hook, which is where you can get the car ferry that will take you over to the island that the national park is on. Do note that they drive on the left side of the road here, which can take a little getting used to. That being said, it was easy to follow Google Maps and it took me right to the ferry where I paid my fee and got in line.
This is wild. You get to the ferry area and then you have to actually back into your lane and then you have to back onto the boat. We'll see how this goes.
It definitely felt like I was being thrown off into the deep end with having to drive a car on a different side of the road and then having to back onto a boat ferry. If these massive freight trucks can do it though, then why couldn't I? And the adventure was what makes it fun, right? Right on time, we were leaving the dock behind and we were taking a bumpy ride across the channel over to St. John. I think I was the only person who got out of my car and walked up to the top deck to take in the views. And it was pretty crazy to see how the massive trucks handled the bumpy water on the boat. The crossing is relatively short at only about 30 minutes, and pretty soon we were pulling into Cruz Bay.
Gotta get back down to get into my car and to exit onto the island.
I can see why they have you reverse on, as it's probably a lot easier to drive off than it would be to reverse off. And from there it was about a 5-minute drive over to my hotel where they had parking spots, and I left my car and went and walked to go find something to eat. The nice thing about Cruz Bay is that it's very walkable if you're staying close to the one roundabout in the town. I walked to get dinner every night and it was only about 5 to 7 minutes to walk to the street with the main bars and restaurants on it. The best spot that I found, and one that I went to multiple times while I was there, was called the Longboard. They had incredible drinks and they had a great poke bowl, which is what I got both times.
Be prepared to spend money if you come down here. Basically everything's expensive on the island, about $30 to $40 a person for dinner at most places. Now let's go see the hotel.
I do want to note that there's a good sized grocery store on the island, and prices are a lot more expensive of course, but there is a lot of options here. For my hotel, the cheapest I could find was the inn at Tamarind Court, and it ended up being a great spot for me, especially traveling by myself.
The room, I got a double bed, an air conditioner, a light, a mini fridge, and a TV. Bathrooms out there.
The bathroom here was shared with the 6 different solo rooms, and there was a small communal area with a microwave. I didn't see any of the other people staying here the entire time I was there. Alright, on to exploring the park, and starting the next day I got the free breakfast at my hotel before heading out.
We're here in Virgin Islands National Park. We're gonna take 2 days to explore, and we're starting with the visitor center.
The Virgin Islands Visitor Center is located right next to where the passenger ferry lets their passengers off. So if you're coming over without a car, this is probably the first thing you'll do, and if you have a car, they have a few parking spots for 15 to 20 minutes here. This is a tiny visitor center with a few exhibits in the different corners and a map of the island, and of course all the different souvenirs you could normally purchase at a national park. At one time there were more than 100 plantations on the island. I was happy to be able to pop in and get the magnet that I always get and to get a passport stamp. But from there I just headed on to explore.
Last night there were some pretty bad thunderstorms which made the runoff go into the water, and it's bad visibility for snorkeling today, so we're gonna snorkel tomorrow. And we're gonna head out on the Reef Bay Trail first, which actually has a waterfall off the rain, so hopefully we get lucky and we can see that waterfall. Made it to our first trail of the day. Apparently I'm the only one who's interested in hiking this trail in the rain, as there's no other cars here. Also note that there's not a lot of parking, maybe a couple spots there and then a couple more up here on the road. So we're gonna go all the way down to the ruins of the sugar mill, but along the way there's this petroglyph offset, and that is where the waterfall is. The woman at the visitor center told me this is the most rewarding trail at the national park, so I'm excited.
This trail is 4 miles round trip without adding on the quarter-mile each way for the petroglyphs. And it has 1,100 feet of elevation, all of which comes as you're heading back out.
This is definitely a good sign for our waterfall to have this much flow just on the trail in the beginning.
I didn't really know what I was getting myself into with this trail with how much rain they had got the previous day, and so I tried not to get my feet wet in the beginning and eventually just gave up. There was a bunch of these tiny lizards just scampering around in front of your feet as you walked.
This is called a silk cotton tree. I've just committed to my shoes getting wet now, so I'm just walking in the middle of the trail. That's one of the things about hiking in this area. Even if it rains, it doesn't really matter if you get wet because it's not cold. It's very warm with the humidity, and it actually feels kind of nice to have my feet wet. So most of the elevation change is within the first half mile. That's about 550 feet. The last mile and a half is basically 300 feet, so it's just a gradual downhill from there. I know when you're coming up, the very end is going to be the hardest part. The creek has basically become the trail at this point. Well, there you go. If you didn't have your feet wet before, you're going to have them wet now.
There are about 4 of these water crossings where you had to get about calf deep when I went.
We're entering the remains of the Josie Gut Sugar Estate. So there's some ruins down here. The first of the ruins we're gonna see on this trail.
I couldn't find out much information about these ruins, but it was fascinating to see them right alongside the trail.
Look at that tree just climbing right out of the ruins. This is an amazing introduction to the national park. The water flow on this trail, the dense forest, the ruins. I get to see a waterfall, more ruins, and a beach. I'm excited. We're about 30 minutes into the hike and we just crossed 1 mile. So that means that this viewpoint is right around a mile. This is a mango tree that's over 100 years old and was introduced from Asia in the 18th century. Kinda wish there was a mango on there I could eat.
Keep your eyes peeled on this trail as there's lots of things that are easy to walk by, including these ruins of what used to be a workers' village near a plantation.
All right, so before we head down to the beach to finish the trail, we're gonna go up to the petroglyphs and waterfall, which is 0.2 miles from here.
Even though there's a sign for the petroglyphs, I'd recommend having an all trails map that you can follow, as it seems like it might be a little easy to get lost back here, especially during this crazy water flow time I was there. This quarter mile is gradual uphill and you'll follow the creek all the way to the base of the waterfall. Here's where you can see the petroglyphs, and there's a small sign that tells you more about them.
Wow, that waterfall is going crazy right now! Oh my gosh!
When looking at the waterfall, at the base on the right hand side you can see the petroglyphs. These petroglyphs were confirmed to be by the pre-Columbian Taínos people and were carved between 900 and 1500 AD. Supposedly the pool that they sit above was sacred and that it could create a unique reflection, but obviously it wasn't doing that when I was there. If you're interested, there's actually an upper waterfall here, but you do have to scramble up a steeper trail to get there.
There's the lower falls right there, and then here is the upper falls.
The upper falls was somewhat hidden in the canyon, but I would say the flow was more impressive and it was taller than the lower.
That is an incredible waterfall, way different than anything I expected to see here. We're gonna take our time going back down to the main trail and onto the beach.
On the way back down, we saw more lizards, stopped to see lower falls one more time, and then did the river crossing to get back to the main trail.
Two things about that: if you don't want to go up a steep trail, I probably wouldn't go to the top. It's definitely steep and slippery. And the second thing is that I've only seen locals on this trail so far, and all of them are coming down here because they're so excited to see the waterfall at this full level. So that's pretty cool to see them enjoying it as well. All right, we made it back to the main trail, crossed over the water. You can see there's a split. That trail goes up, but we are staying on this to the Reef Bay factory.
From the split, most of the hard work is done and you just walk the flat path down towards the water.
This is wild pineapple. Wow. That would be pretty cool to see a pineapple growing there. I mean, hopefully you can see by how much water is on the trail that this is not a normal way to experience this area. So if you come to see that waterfall, temper your expectations because it'll probably be way different than this. All right, we've made it to the ruins. They are right on the other side of this tree. Wow, look at how cool that is. Look at these ruins. You see all the crabs climbing the walls right there? Wow. That's what's awesome about ruins near the beach. Huh. This is not what I expected to see down here. It is way cooler. These ruins are in fantastic shape. Let's go explore a little bit.
From what I read, parts of this building date back to the 1700s, with a lot of the work being done on it in the 1800s.
There's all sorts of little crabs in those old sugar making bowls. This is called the boiling house, and this is where they started to make sugar.
This is supposedly one of the best surviving examples of what the sugar industry looked like in this part of the Caribbean.
The old steam engine in here was built in 1861 in Scotland, and it was ran until 1916.
It's also one of only a few that actually converted to steam engines and used that to process the sugar cane. During the entire time I was down here, I didn't see another person, and I spent a good 45 minutes just walking around the different parts of the ruins, reading the information plaques I could find, and just learning more about the history.
And this is where the rum still used to be.
One of the funniest things about exploring here is that everywhere you walk around the property, you'll see little hermit crabs scampering out in front of you.
I don't know what I expected when I came here, but it certainly was not that. Those ruins are incredible. So here's where we are at, and then this is the entire area that we explored right here.
There's also a pit toilet you can use here, and then it's about a 5-minute walk down to the beach.
Something else I didn't expect is to be walking through all of the forest and then to see all this cactus right here. Such an interesting climate. You can see how bad the snorkeling would be with all of that debris that's in the water. But if you're here on a nice day, this is probably a pretty remote beach to swim at that a lot of people don't come down to. All right, I'm putting this away and we are starting the 2-mile trail back up to the top. All right, we made it back to the car. That is a fantastic introduction to the national park. You got history from the ruins. You got amazing waterfalls. You got all the little lizards that were scampering across the trail while you were walking. And then of course you have the beach at the end as well. I will say though that coming back up that uphill, that was tough. I am soaking wet, and not because I went swimming, but because of the humidity and the uphill. So amazing trail, but tough going back up. Let's head on to more spots in the park.
From the trailhead for Reef Bay, we came down from the mountains and headed towards Coral Bay. On the way, we saw many of the donkeys that are often found in this part of the island. These donkeys are pictures of the past when they were used to carry things around the island, but now they're actually free roaming and they form their own herds, and you can see them on the roads and even near the water. I also saw some goats that looked like they had escaped on my way to lunch. For lunch, I headed to the Jolly Dog, a love spot in St. John, which I was told was great for painkiller drinks and fish tacos. I tried both. I will say that Coral Bay has some great spots for food, and if you come out here for hiking, you should definitely stop.
Those are good.
There's also a cool store here with lots of St. John, Virgin Islands, and Coral Bay merch if you're looking to take something home with you.
Now we're gonna head on to one more hike, and so this day is a little bit more intense and tomorrow will be a lot more low-key.
Leaving lunch, the road got a little bit more washed out as we made our way around Coral Bay and towards the trailhead for Ram Head, which was gonna be our next hike. This is definitely a more remote part of the island, but there were still a lot of donkeys that you had to go by.
As you can tell, parking is pretty limited in a lot of these places. There's about 10 spots here maybe. There's also a popular beach here, so I would imagine that people probably spend a lot of time here. So you probably want to get here early, or I don't know, maybe it clears out faster than I would think. I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty tired after that last trail, but I figured since I was already on this side of the island, which is about 35 minutes or so drive from Cruz Bay, I would just get this hike done today, and then tomorrow I can kind of stay on that side. This is Salt Pond Beach, which looks like an incredible place to hang out. Look how clear the water is. But we're just walking to the end of the beach and going up the trail.
If it's not already evident, one of the best things to do in this national park is just to find one of these amazing beaches and sit there the entire day.
If this weather holds up when I get back, I'm definitely gonna go to the other side of the island and do some snorkeling, because this is too perfect right now, and it was supposed to rain this afternoon.
The trail to Ramhead is 2.5 miles round trip with about 350 feet of elevation gain as you go up and down over a few small hills.
I don't know if this is true, but this definitely looks like pieces of coral that are up here on the trail.
Once you leave the beach and start heading up on the narrow single track, the trail gives you some amazing views back towards the mountains behind you. And I found this to be a pretty peaceful trail as there weren't a lot of people and it was fun just to see the different breaks in the views.
There's our first view of Ramhead out in the distance, that point way out there. There's the point out there, and this is known as Blue Cobblestone Beach before me.
Blue Cobblestone Beach was another stunning spot, and even though it didn't have sand and it just had rocks, the rocks did have a bluish hue that made them beautiful.
Here's more of these coral rocks. Pretty cool. This is an incredible trail. Both of the beaches that you get to would be stunning places to come and sit for a few hours. All right, here's where the trail leaves the beach and is the final push up to Ramhead.
This is where the trail gains the most elevation, but it's not too challenging.
Note that if you come here after rain like me, the humidity is pretty crazy. Feels like I got a big wet blanket just sitting on top of me right now. I'm already soaking wet again. Wow, look at all these cacti.
I asked a local what kind of cactus this was, as I had never seen anything that looked like this, and they said it's called Turk's Cap cactus. As you head up to the top of the last hill and you turn around and see the views behind you, you'll realize why it is you came out here.
We made it to the top, incredible views up here, but actually a very sad history, which I'll tell you about right now.
With all the plantations that were on the island, there's also a sad history of slavery on the island as well. During the spring of 1734, many enslaved individuals fought the controlled Danish colony of St. John for almost 6 months. Eventually, the Danish overtook them and gained back control. And at the top of Ramhead, a number of freedom fighters, rather than be returned to slavery, took their own lives by jumping off of the rock. There's a small plaque up here that tells their story, and as you're seeing the plantation ruins on the island, it's important to understand the slavery that was here as well.
I'm putting this away though, and I'm going to walk back to the car and head to the north side of the island.
Leaving Ramhead, I drove about 30 minutes to the north side of the island to get to a famous beach known as Cruz Bay. This is easily the most popular place in the entire national park, so note that if you go here, parking can be very difficult. I had no problem finding parking since it was so late in the day, and I headed out to go on the Snorkel trail before the sun went down.
Wow, I don't think you could get a more perfect end to the day than this. I honestly didn't think we were gonna see the sun the entire time we're here, but we're gonna get a little bit of a sunset, and then that is the snorkel trail out there we're gonna do as well.
Since it was late in the day and I thought this might be my best opportunity to have clear water, I got my stuff on and quickly headed out for the snorkel trail.
You can see those buoys, that's where the trail is at.
According to the website, this trail takes 30 to 60 minutes and you swim around to the different buoys and look down on the reef below you. I thought it was incredibly cool that there were plaques and markers that you could see and that you could swim to, but unfortunately for me, it was poor visibility and I didn't see anything else on the trail.
I didn't make it all the way out to the third buoy because I wanted to come in and catch the sunset, and the visibility was starting to go down with how dark it was in there. But that's a cool little trail that they have, and this is an incredible beach.
After making it back up to the shore, I just grabbed my towel and I sat down and enjoyed the sunset for the last 20 minutes. After making it back to Cruz Bay, I parked my car and I walked the 5 minutes down to the restaurants. This time I decided to go to the Tap and Still, which serves drinks, burgers, and funnel cake. They were also having trivia night, which I participated in, but I only had one person and the rest had teams, so I did not do very well.
If you're looking for the lowest price dinner, that's the lowest price I've found so far. If you know of a different one, let me know in the comments. That's it for our first day. We'll see you tomorrow.
To start the day, I headed out on North Shore Road and decided to stop at all of the overlooks that I can find on my way to Annaberg. There's some great ones right as you're coming out of the city that look back over Cruz Bay, and you can see how humid it is by how much my camera fogged up as I'm taking these shots of the donkeys. And then as I continued around, I decided to stop at the Peace Hill Trail.
This wasn't gonna be my first stop of the day, but there's only 3 parking spots and I didn't want to miss it later. So we're gonna head up, see some ruins, and then continue on.
I'll talk about this more in the tips video, but you definitely need a car to experience this island like I am, and you also need to be aware of how limited the parking is in a lot of the spots. This trail is only about a 5-minute walk up to the Peace Hill Windmill.
Wow, this is a cool spot, and each of the windows have amazing views.
I couldn't find a lot of information about this windmill, such as when it was built or what it was actually for, but I will say it was a very cool place to walk up to, especially since it was so easy to access, and I'm glad I got a chance to see it.
One of the things that's challenging about a park like this is predicting the weather. It was sunny in Cruz Bay, about 10 minutes drive from here, and as you can see, it is now raining on me. Super unpredictable. At this time of the year, you pretty much just got to plan on being wet, either from swimming in the beach, the humidity, or the rain. That's the hill we were on right there, and 2 minutes later the rain has stopped. This overlook is the best in the park, or at least the most classic view in the park, so definitely stop before you get to Trunk Bay. I mean, that's kind of like the Virgin Islands tunnel view right there. Beautiful with the beach and then all the islands out there. Wow. See those buoys there? That's the Snorkel Trail, the underwater snorkel trail.
From there we headed down to Trunk Bay.
It's 9:20 right now, and there's only 5 spots left in Trunk Bay, and this is the off season. So if you're coming on the busy season, you probably have to get here by 8:30 or so in order to get a spot, and people will stay here most of the day, so it is hard to get a spot later as well. I'm gonna go check it out again because I didn't get to bring my camera and I only saw it at sunset yesterday, and then we're gonna head on.
As far as I could tell from the places I visited, this was the only one that I found that cost, and it cost $5 a person to enter. Right when I got there, the sun came out, so I decided to try out the snorkel trail again.
Unfortunately, the visibility is way worse today than it was yesterday here, so you just get to see the 2 buoys on the trail that we did yesterday, but not the 3rd one.
Again, this is a beach you could spend the entire day at, which I'm guessing most of these people were going to do, but for me, I continued on to explore some more of the island. When we left Trunk Bay at 10:30, there were 7 cars waiting in the parking lot trying to find a spot. And then we drove by Maho Bay, the second most popular beach, which also had no parking. It wasn't a big deal for us though, as that wasn't our destination. Next up, we made it out to the Annaberg Plantation, and we're gonna go explore Plantation, and then we're gonna take the trail out to Waterlemon Cay. From the parking lot, it's about a 10-minute walk up to where the start of the plantation ruins are. If you don't have a car, you can also take taxis like this truck out here, but I'm not exactly sure how that works. Here's the map of the plantation, all the different points of interest you can see while here. The plantation tour is self-guided, and you can enter most of the building ruins, and there's information plaques along the way. This is the remains of the sugar factory, kind of like the one that we saw yesterday with the different pots. And you can see over here, they have a couple of them still left. This plantation dates back to 1721, and it's one of the best that you can see on the island. It's from a time when the Danish were in charge of the island and the sugar boom was in full swing. Unfortunately, it also carries the sad history of slavery, and there were over 600 slaves that worked in brutal conditions here. Here's where we're at currently on the plantation. You can see the entire thing. Right across the water from where we're at is actually the British Virgin Islands, less than 2 miles away. The windmill is one of the most dominant parts of the ruins, and it was actually used to crush the sugarcane down. It was one of the most dangerous jobs on the plantation though, and people often lost limbs using it. It's really sad to be walking through this area and just to see the juxtaposition of the beautiful views of the islands, and then read about the horrible conditions that the people who were enslaved here lived in and worked in. It's just kind of, I don't know if I'm really getting my point across, but it's sobering to see the beauty and then to kind of learn these stories. I don't know if they do docent-led tours here, but if I come back in the future, I'll probably look into one of those, as I would love to learn more from someone who's knowledgeable about it. All right, now we're heading out on this trail to Waterlemon Cay, which is a little bit less than a mile.
Waterlemon Cay is supposed to be one of the best places on the entire island to snorkel. I'm guessing based on the visibility of where we were at earlier that it's not going to be great today, but I wanted to go out and at least see it and show it to you all.
This is a unique trail as it goes along a rocky beach and then it keeps cutting inland and going under these tree-covered canopies.
I'm really hopeful that the sun will come out sometime while we're here, because then you can see the beautiful blues of the water that we saw from above down here. Instead of sun, we got rain. This is how it goes. There wasn't any rain scheduled for today, but here we are, getting soaking wet and trying to hide under a tree. There's some more.
Luckily, the rain didn't last for too long and we were able to finish the hike out to Waterlemon Cay.
Look at how clear that water is, and there's nobody else on the beach. The good thing about the rain is that I'm already soaking wet, so there's no reason not to get in once I finish this hike.
My reasoning for coming out on this trail was twofold. One, to go to Waterlemon Cay and snorkel, and two, to go to the Windy Hill Guest House ruins.
Right at the bend of the first switchback, you'll make it to the first set of ruins.
Again, there's not a lot of information about these ruins, but what I was told is that this was the ruins of the lower house, so a place where the guests would have stayed when they came to visit.
I was planning on going down further, but the trail is really overgrown with these plants, and look at those spikes. I think I will stay where I'm at.
There's some cool views, especially this archway that's still intact, and then when you're ready, you just start hiking up the switchbacks.
If you come up here, note that this is a very overgrown trail and that it feels like every plant on the island is trying to kill you with its stickers. I sincerely hope this trail is worth it. My legs are all bloody from all of these stickers and it is very overgrown, so fingers crossed. There we go, first view of the structure.
I will say it was worth it to come all the way up here. This is the ruins of what must have been a massive house, and look at the views that they had in every direction. Absolutely stunning.
I mean, it is pretty cool the way that the plants and everything have grown up around the house.
There was a lot to explore with the floor plan, but there weren't many walls left. And basically you had to climb on the walls to get over some of the plants, and I would say be very careful if you do any of that, as you're likely to see something crumple. The views up here were stunning though.
Time to fight my way back down the hill and do some snorkeling right here. Something that I would have never expected about this national park is that I've basically seen no one on any of the hiking trails. There's people at there's those sticky trees. There's people at all of the different beaches and stuff, but there's literally no one on the hiking trails. I've seen the same couple of people 3 or 4 times. It's pretty crazy. Just some goats on the beach, no big deal. All right, I'm gonna spend a little bit of time snorkeling to end my day.
Almost as soon as I put my head under the water, I knew that I had made the right choice coming all the way out here and bringing my snorkel gear. Sure, the visibility probably isn't as good as it normally is out here, but I was able to see a ton of stuff. As I just floated around aimlessly, I probably saw 2 to 3 dozen different types of fish. After about 40 minutes of snorkeling here, I decided to walk down the beach to the actual cove and to head in there. This ended up being the right call, as I almost immediately saw my first sea turtle. I couldn't believe I was having this experience where I was just floating around and slowly watching a sea turtle eat grass and then come up for air whenever I felt like it needed to.
What's even more crazy is that you can see there's literally no one around me. I'm the only person here other than those boats out in the distance. I just saw the turtle come up, going back down.
When I went back down, I saw a ray, and then as I turned to the right, I saw a turtle, and then I turned again and I saw another turtle.
You guys, I can't believe it. There was 3 sea turtles down there. This is so incredible. Oh my gosh. My battery's about to die, but I might be here for the rest of the day.
This was the last footage I could get before my battery died, but as you can tell, I was blown away by this experience, and it was one of the best I've ever had at a United States National Park.
I don't even have words for that experience. That 3 turtles swimming around me at the same time. I was just sitting in the middle. There wasn't a soul on the beach. Man, how do you beat that? We're doing the hike back. We got one more thing to do before I end our time at the national park.
As if it wasn't enough to see 3 different sea turtles, I came around the bend and I saw a bunch of deer out in front of me as well. Easily one of the best national parks I've ever been to for wildlife. From there, it was about a 20-minute drive up to my last stop in the national park. This spot is known as the Windmill Bar, and you do have to pay to park here, but you'll see why in a minute.
Honestly though, have you ever seen a better view for a place to get a drink and some food?
Cheers. I ended my time with my favorite drink on the island, the painkiller, and a chicken bowl.
Have you ever seen a better spot for dinner and a view?
Oh, and they often have live music here as well for sunset, which makes it even better.
And with that, our time in Virgin Islands National Park is done. Hopefully you enjoyed this adventure with me. You can see all the national park content in the description. See you on the next one.